Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Mates podcast. I'm your host, Josh Milling, joined again, once again, and always by the one and only Ryan Linnell Barnes. How's it going?
It's going so great, Josh. You were close to my middle name.
Was I?
You had the first letter right.
Larnell.
Free hint. I'll keep you
Leonard.
guessing. No, it's not Leonard.
It's Larnell.
Also, joined by the greatest security guard of all time, Tanner Carr.
Josh, I love tacos on a fresh tortilla.
Boston.
Boston.
And Jack Black.
Good day.
Excuse me?
I don't know.
Get that? Get that?
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be, but
Irish Boston. Alright, boys, and today we are going to be reviewing The Departed, directed by the one, the only Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Alec Baldwin, Mark Wahlberg, Martin Sheen, fucking everyone, dude.
Dude, is Donnie Wahlberg even in it too? I think I saw Donnie Wahlberg.
Donnie Wahlberg? I'm not sure.
I don't know, man.
I can check that out, but Departed, released in 2006. But not that old, maybe, but 14 years old.
Hey, it's been a while. It's been over a decade.
Yeah, I know. Also, Vera Farmiga. How do you pronounce it? Vera Farmiga is also in the movie, who is also in The Conjuring,
Yeah.
which we just watched.
Oh my God! I just realized that.
Yeah, that was Lorraine.
Huh?
Don't look anything like her.
is that right? Is Lorraine your middle name?
No, it's not.
Damn it.
That's great. Oh yeah, Robert Wahlberg's in this.
Donnie Wahlberg. What?
I
Wahlberg?
see Robbie Wahlberg.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know they have a bunch of brothers in that family, but I've only heard of either Mark Wahlberg, obviously, or yes, Josh, or or Donnie Wahlberg, who's not as big but has been in a number of good shit. Hold on,
Martin Scorsese's daughter is
Robert. Hey, oh god damn it! I was gonna say this to you. Hey, Josh, have you gotten your period yet?
Wow, these are cranberry juice.
No, from
I
the
was-
beginning with the daughter and the.
Oh yeah, so gross. Guys, I love Frank. Anyway,
Frank.
boys, yeah. What you guys think about this movie? Anyone want to start?
I'll start. Since I'm the only one, since Josh and I are the only ones who have seen it, right? Have you seen it, Jack?
No.
Before? Okay. I fucking love this movie, dude. The acting is amazing. I love the story. I think it's really cool. I think it's based off of a true story. Like Frank
Yeah.
Costello was a real person.
No. Frank Costello is based off of Whitey Bulger.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, we're both Boston gang bosses, and both were FBI informants.
I love like the beginning sequence that introduces, and then it fucking pounds you with shipping up to Boston, and then it shows the title of the movie, which is fucking sick.
I'm with you, Ryan. I feel like this is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, it's so good, dude.
I love this movie because you got some of the best actors of all time in here: Jack Nicholson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg, Matt
Marky
Damon.
Mark.
Marky Mark, the Funky Bunch.
Dude, this is probably my favorite Matt Damon role.
I would agree, just because
not my favorite Leo.
I mean, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I haven't seen the Bourne movies.
I mean, he's not like great actor in it, but they're pretty good.
Okay. And what are they? Oh, wait. Oh, is that Matt Damon? Hold on. Yes. Good Will Hunting is probably my favorite Matt Damon role.
Yeah, you're right. That's my favorite Matt Damon role. All right, this is my second favorite Matt Damon.
Oh, we should be Good Will
How do
Hunting
you like them
next.
apples? That's what Mark Wahlberg said to Matt Damon's body at the end. But
No, he didn't. Did he say that?
No, he didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I was
He
like,
should've
that's
said
so
that.
stupid. Could you imagine?
Fucking shoot somebody like them, Apple.
Spoilers, Josh, for our viewers.
Oh, spoilers, yeah, future spoilers. I fucking love this movie, man. It's just like the directing is so good. The use of music, how like every time that one shuts a phone, it'll just cut the music completely. And I just think that it's very impacting. The way they use that. The soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah.
The songs on here are amazing. I love it. I just love and I love the contrast between Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters throughout the whole entire thing. How, and we'll kind of get into it, but how I'll get into that at the end. I'll say that for my end review. But I love this movie.
Others?
With this movie, it was definitely for a first time view. I definitely had to pause and go back to see what just happened, because it was hard to follow. But I really like this movie. I'd say I love this movie. It's really good. It's just it was hard. I guess I'm just the type of person that likes it when it's more of a simple plot. But this was kind of.
So
it depends on what your genre is, but I liked it.
So I agree with you, Tanner. When I first watched it, I think the pacing is a little weird. It's not bad, but the way that they pace the movie is a little weird.
I didn't say it was bad. I just said it was fast, like fast. Like,
it was pretty fast, and for a long movie, it's fast. I agree with that.
I feel like it goes by pretty quick though.
It
for how
does.
Long it is.
It does. It's still, but it's still 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's a long movie. Very long.
it just felt like they had to cram so much information that maybe some scenes just needed like. I just feel like there may be a few scenes that didn't really like. I don't know. Like I'm just like, is this like, do I need to write this down or do I need to talk about this scene? You know, I was having a hard time with that since I'm trying to, the person who kind of summarized the movies. I'm like, is this important to it? I can't tell.
Yeah, they do cut like a lot of places.
But I tried my best.
Yeah. Jack?
Yeah.
Overall, I think it's a really good movie. Like, the actors are amazing. The soundtrack, as you said, is really good. The pacing's really, like... The pacing's the only, like, kind of lower part of this movie, just because it's very, very fast. And then... Well, there are some parts where it's a little bit slower. Like, when Leonardo DiCaprio's character goes to, like, therapy and stuff like that, it slows it down a little bit more, and that's a normal pace. And then there's all the intense scenes, which are fast, like, super bam, 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 and then it's done. Which, I mean, for a movie like this, with how the story is, I think that's really what it should be.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I think it's a pretty good movie.
Hell yeah.
Alright, ready to jump into this then?
Let's go, Josh.
Do you want me to do it, Tanner, or you want to take
I
the ball?
think I can do it. You guys stop me if I do forget. I know I'm gonna forget something. But
Yeah,
you guys
good.
stop
We'll
me
be
and
good.
elaborate on like the lines and stuff. But I did my best.
I'll skim around the movie with you. I have it pulled up here, so.
Cool.
The thing about this movie is like there is a lot of dialogue, so summarizing it is going to be a little challenging. Yeah.
A lot of scenes too, because it cut, especially the beginning where it cut into Leo, Matt.
Josh,
Right.
did you say you have the movie pulled up?
Yeah.
Do you want to go scene by scene and then Tanner explains the scene?
No, Tanner just go for it.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
All right. Well, we start off. Basically, Frank Costello, played by Jack Nicholson, is giving us a monologue. He's talking about the good old days in Boston, which is where this movie takes place. During the speech, you get a shot of like rioting in the streets. Frank Costello basically tells us that he has no interest in taking the back seat in life. He wants to be the driver and he wants to be in control. We cut to Frank going into a diner or like a soda shop where he shakes down the owner for protection, money, which tells us that Frank is a mobster, so he's like a mob boss. And he also compliments the guy on his pretty teenage daughter.
That hasn't just got a period yet. So
And
creepy.
he calls the girl over. When she comes, he makes like a rude sexual comment towards her. I forget what it was though.
Yeah, have you got your period
Oh yeah.
Have you got your period yet?
And then she walks away.
And then he whispers in her ear, and then she smiles for some reason when he gives her the money. You know what I'm talking about? Like, she smiled slightly when he whispered something. I was like, he
yeah,
just
she does.
asked you in public if you got your period, and now you're like
In front of a
smiling
bunch
over
of,
this
young kids.
man. Yeah.
In front of
Fr-
young Colin. Sorry.
Frank notices a young kid down the counter. He's like looking at him, and he asks the kid if he belongs to Johnny Sullivan, which is his dad, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he obliged, and he says he's Colin Sullivan. Frank knows that the kid's dad is like dead, so he buys the kid groceries. What does he buy him? Like
Comic book.
comic
groceries,
books,
bread, just
bread and stuff.
and
Milk.
he gives him some money too.
Mm-hmm. And he asks him if he ever needs work or he ever needs money, just come see him. We see the young kid working as like a part of the church. What's that occupation called? Like an altar boy.
Altar boy.
Yeah.
This is a great comment later on about altar boys.
Then we flash back. We cut to Frank telling him not to obey what the church says because the church likes to give out orders. So Frank says he needs to make his own orders. And we cut some footage of him killing like a mafia guy and his girlfriend, or a couple. Apparently, the mafia tried to move on his turf.
From Providence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then this is when we get our time lapse, our cut to the future, where we see Colin Sullivan, who's played by Matt Damon, go through the police academy and working towards becoming a cop. We see another guy named Billy Costigan. Is that what I'm saying? Right? Costigan?
Yes.
Costigan.
Billy
Costigan.
Costigan.
Josh, Billy is a nickname for William.
William Costigan Jr.
He's played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and they're taking their police exam, and he's kind of like the smart. He's like the smart one.
Wait, out of Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio's the smart one.
Is he?
Yeah, he got a
Leo's a
1400
smart
on
one.
the-
Right.
the
He's
SAT.
like you should be an astronaut, not a statey.
Yeah. Also, we get a great scene of like them playing rugby or something against the firemen. It's like first time he ever got pussy, and then they all celebrate. Call him, like they say some derogatory slang toward them.
And then they what do they say? Go rescue a tree.
Yeah, go
or a
rescue the
cat in
kid
a
from a
tree.
tree, you pussies. Walking off. This shit is so funny. The comedy in this movie is so good. I'll go into it.
Next, like I said, the movie moves really fast. Next thing we know, we see Colin and Billy are both graduating. Frank Costello drives by to say hi to Colin and gives him a present. It looks like Colin's basically now digging himself in to become a mole cop working for the mob, so he's a snitch in the system.
Very first rat.
Next, we see Colin in the office for special investigations. He gets accepted, and this is led by Captain Queenan, Sergeant and Dignam. Dignam played by Mark Wahlberg, and Queenan played by Martin Sheen. Okay.
Charlie Sheen's
Yep.
dad.
Heyo.
Queenan seems like the nice guy, the leader, the captain, and Dignam is a real Boston jackass jerk.
I love. Dude, Dignam is the best character in this movie. He is so funny. Who are you? I'm the guy doing his job. Who are you? You must be the other guy. That's what he says. One of my favorite. Dude, there's so many favorite ones.
As Colin leaves, Billy gets into the office immediately and heads into the office, and we found out in his interview that his family's connections are all in a rough neighborhood in the south, like in the southern neighborhood, which just so happens to be where Frank Costello, the mob boss, does all of his mob.
Yo, Tanner.
Yeah?
I just got interrupted because my favorite, my favorite Dignam line came from the first meeting. And,
Go ahead.
Captain Queenan was like, "You're gonna rise fast." The Dignam was like a 12-year-old's dick. And Matt Damon just looks at him and goes, "Thank you, Sergeant." And he goes, "My pleasure." It's so funny. Alright, you go, dude.
You always interrupted me to talk about dicks, Josh. Always.
You won't do
That is true.
It's a great line.
Yeah. Billy, whatever. Okay, we also know that Billy also has an uncle who was killed for being involved with the mob, the organized crime.
I think he was killed by Providence. Or, he was whacked by someone. He wasn't whacked by Frank.
I don't remember.
Cause,
I just know his dad was killed.
Yeah, Jackie was his uncle.
Another uncle named Tommy was busted for selling guns. Sergeant Dignam is more skeptical about Billy's background than Queenan, which leads to him being more of a jerk.
Yeah, they go off on him, man.
Yeah, I know. He looked like he's about to cry.
I know, they were so
What a
mean to
pussy.
Leo. I mean, bro, he goes through such a character change from, this to the end of the movie.
It's because he drinks cranberry juice.
What is he on his period?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, we see Colin get promoted to staff sergeant immediately, and he sits down and on a special meeting for the police departments, and they're like the core, the best and the smartest. This unit is working to mess with the organized crime, so they're specializing in organized crime in Boston in cooperation with the FBI.
And the captain of that unit, Al Baldwin.
Yeah, Captain Ellerby.
Something like that, yeah. Who's also really funny in this movie.
That is true.
They show us pictures of Billy Costigan's uncle, Jackie, who was shot and killed. He also shows some pics of other organized crime, big shots in the end. So, he shows French, another guy.
The Irish dude.
Yeah, the Irish.
Really Irish dude.
And then it ends with the picture of Frank. So he's the most wanted. We go back to special investigations. Queenan and Dignam tell Billy that it's the same conversation, but we just skip to another scene, right?
Yep.
Okay, so they basically
this all happen simultaneously.
Yeah, it's happened all simultaneously.
Kind of confusing, but yeah.
Dignam tells Billy that he's never going to be a state trooper. They think that his SAT marks are way too high and that he's just not cut out for the job. And then we get a cut. To we see Billy, a flashback. Billy and his by his mom's bedside. She's dying of cancer.
Fucked up scene, dude.
And then after we get a cut to the outside hall of the hospital where he's talking to his, I don't know, a upper class family member, a lawyer or something.
It was his uncle.
And it was his uncle. Is Jackie?
There was another one. No, this is the priest that they were talking about.
No. Okay.
This was his priest uncle and his sister's brother.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just it's just kind of a throwaway scene. It's just telling him that he has. It's pretty much showing he has no family now.
Where am I? Okay, Billy is back in this. We cut to Billy back being in the special investigation unit with Queen and Dignam. It looks like they want Billy to become an undercover cop and infiltrate the organized crime. Right in his old neighborhood in the southern part of the district, Southie, right? I don't remember. The Southeast. The big catch that we find out is that the cops can't conceal the fact that Billy was a police trainee, so they'll have to give him back his street cred by convincing him of a crime and sending him to jail, which is going to be an assault. Then he eventually gets out on probation. While he's in jail, he meets a fellow guy who's talking to him about his cousin. But just a.
Oh yeah, I know your cousin.
So he gets out on probation, and we see a court order. He's ordered to see a psychiatrist to convince everyone that he's a legit criminal. This is when, Billy's in jail simultaneously. We're getting shots of Colin. He's living in like the Sweet Life apartment style suite as a staff sergeant. We see Billy Costigan back out of jail, pulling off drug deals with his cousin. He goes. He lives with his aunt or his grandma. I forget.
I think that's this dude. That's his aunt.
Aunt.
Oh, this is his cousin's mom.
His cousin's mom. So his aunt.
So his aunt.
This is his aunt. No, sorry. This is his aunt. No, it's fuck off. Yeah.
They're having a conversation on the back patio. His cousin mentioning the fact that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing so close on Frank's turf. We cut back to Billy. He's hanging out in the rough bar with his cousin. Sean, what's his name? Sean? Yeah, Sean?
I have no idea. It's his name. He's in it. Like, this is like the last time he's in it.
Alright, well. I don't know. If someone Google it, I think it's Sean. Sean's trying to introduce him to Frank Costello's people. These guys... Yeah. These guys remember Billy's uncle, Jackie, well, and make a toast to, like, his demise since he was killed by a rival... what is it? Italian gangsters.
Yeah, I think it was. The great cranberry juice scene.
Oh yeah. Meanwhile, Billy orders a cranberry juice at the bar.
Period.
And then he, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
And he talks smack to him. Go ahead.
And then smashes the fucking glass over his head. and the guy he smashed the glass over his head, is the guy he almost can hit but can't hit. That's what he says.
And then French goes over and hits him.
It's like, that's what is it, Frankie? Frankie's nephew, right?
Yeah.
No, Jackie's nephew.
Oh, Jackie's
nephew.
Okay,
Jackie's
excuse
nephew. And then French also says, "Are you on your period?" Yeah, that's what he ordered.
Get the boy a cranberry juice.
I like French, dude.
So yeah, they get into a fight. Mr. French gets in, pulls him out, says, "That's a guy. Yeah, you guys pretty much covered it. Good job."
Thanks.
French pretty much lays down the rules, like the law, and tells Billy that there's some people you can hit and some people you can't, like people who are connected to the mob. He also tells Billy that he'll have to stop making stupid drug deals with his stupid cousin. Or jerk off cousin. Thank you, Josh. Once again, interrupting me talking about dicks. Sorry, Josh.
That
Super
dicks,
two.
bro. That was jerking off.
What do you do with the dick, Josh? You jerk it off.
I'm a good Christian boy. I don't do anything with it.
Altar boy?
Yeah,
What?
okay. Altar boy?
Yeah, I suck him then.
Jesus Christ.
Gee, oh my god.
That's altar boy's phrase.
The only reason French isn't messing Billy up already is that French knows Billy's family and likes him. So.
Because of Josh, we're not gonna have a religious fan base.
Yeah, you fucked it. Nice.
You fucked it.
I mean, we're all cursed and
Josh,
shit.
we need that evangelical presence on this channel.
Sorry, bro. Our good Christian YouTube channel
I'll be the good Christian boy.
Has been tarnished by
Check,
your
you just said fuck
cocksucking
twice.
remarks.
No, I didn't.
Fucking jerk off.
Billy agrees to let go of the drug deals, and Mr. French orders him a new cranberry juice.
Yep.
And then that's Mr. French then beats up the guy that he smashed the glass on, right?
Right.
Or no? Was it a different guy?
Yes. No. Yeah. Because then he's all like, "That's Jackie's nephew."
Oh yeah.
And he's like, whacks his shit.
Ryan, are you playing with your keys?
I am. Sorry, I'm just laying in bed staring at the ceiling.
That's fine.
All right. We cut to a staff meeting at the police station. The head, Captain Ellerby, and Sergeant Gignum describe how Frank Costello's organization has pulled off a heist on microprocessors that he apparently is going to sell to the Chinese, to China. The cops want to create a organization to take Costello down once and for all, so they're creating like a separate unit for him.
Get more good Dignam scenes.
Yeah.
Forge your transcript, dickhead. I can't do a Marky Mark accent.
That's okay. I don't think
The
anybody
FBI
can besides Mark. Sorry.
The FBI wants to know if Dignam's unit has anyone undercover with Costello at the moment, but Dignam won't give a straight answer because he wants to protect his informants. How well am I doing, guys? Am I on track?
Yeah, you're on track.
Yeah, you're doing good.
All right.
Slow.
Yeah, because
Gucci.
like when they asked him, about his informants, he's like, maybe I do, maybe I don't. Fuck you. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said.
All right. Cut to Colin. He heads out to investigate the murder of a dude who stole microprocessors for Costello, but the guy... This is when he's knocking on the door of this woman, and this is the guy's mom, and tells him to go away after Costello drives past her house with her daughter in his car.
Yeah, something like that.
So that's also a scene I was confused about. Like, because Matt Damon is a rat. He's like on his side.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Well, his
I
partner's
get-
there too.
His partner was there, so I guess she would still
his
give up information.
But his partner at the end of the movie is shown to be a rat.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So,
Sorry, no,
yeah, I
I
don't
watched
really
this last night, so
I don't
yeah.
understand
Okay.
it.
I don't understand. I don't know, man.
Whatever. Maybe he's trying to keep from Colin that guy's not a rat. Yeah, like I think Frank, because Frank doesn't really tell him who's who. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So maybe that's why. Go ahead.
So as the lady slams the door in his face, Colin notices that a couple of vehicles are tailing him. And then they drive through a red light, or no, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, they cuss the elevator scene.
Oh yeah, okay. So we're back at the
He's not
station.
hitting on Conjuring chick.
Yep. Colin
Yep.
runs into the what's the woman's name?
Lorraine.
Madeline, and they're in the elevator. He knows that she's a mental health professional, and he kind of smooth talks his way to getting a date with her for dinner.
It's ironic.
He's pretty smooth.
After Madeline walks away, Colin gets a call from Frank, who wants to know why there are two vehicles that are on his back. Colin says he knew nothing about it. He knows nothing about the tails, but he gives Frank the info on them to help him out. And this is like, it looks like Colin's time in the police force. This is when like his things are paying off. Like this is the first scene where being a mole in the police force is starting to pay off.
Yep.
Then seconds later, we cut back to Frank, who orders Mr. French to ditch the cars that are tailing him, which he usually does by going through a red light. And like for some reason, the cars stop on the. I don't know. Better. I'm just picky. All right. We cut back to like a restaurant where Billy is having lunch with two Italian dudes, trying to shake down the store owner for money, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Billy walks over to the register. He tries to make a conversation with the Italians, and then he loses it beats them both to a pulp, breaking his hand in the process. But did he break his hand or strain his hand, or did he break it?
He broke it. He hit him pretty fucking.
Yeah, because he like gives us the money. He's like, take care of that hand.
And
No,
like
no. This is when he punches the two Providence dudes.
in the
Or
convenience
shaking them.
store.
And then he takes the coat rack and fucking pounds his
Oh, wait, who does? Leonardo DiCaprio?
head in. Billy, yeah, Leo.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm lost. So we are in. No, I'm lost. Where are we?
So we're in the convenience store where Billy's eating.
This fight scene is sick. He beats the piss out of these guys, dude.
Yeah, he's just fucking. He's just so relentless. And he gets the coat rack and like, oh, that's gotta hurt.
Sorry, when you mentioned broken hand, I thought we were in the scene where we'll get to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the next.
Oh, well, fuck.
2 seconds.
Then we immediately cut to the restaurant scene where Colin's hanging out with Madeline, and the date seems to be going okay. And Colin wants to know how what's it like having her job, getting to know her, all the feelings, starting to.
You can skip this.
Okay, yes, it's just another scene where I just feel like, is this needed?
If it's gonna move, I'm gonna shoot it. Shut up, Damon.
So you want me to skip this scene, Josh?
Yeah, go. Yes.
Yeah, you can skip.
All right, let me just grab my.
You can skip all the scenes that don't.
It's just a scene that, because she is gonna be a part of she's gonna be the love interest, so it sets up the chemistry a little bit. But yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah,
we don't need that shit.
We just skip the scenes that don't matter.
Okay, but I don't know what scenes matter and which don't, Josh. You guys are up. You guys
trust me, dude. This scene doesn't matter.
All right. Whatever. Okay, we're back at the bar with Billy drinking a cranberry juice.
Yeah, he's drinking his cranberry juice.
The place falls, quiet as Frank walks in and sits down beside him. He's like, "Hey, you know who I am?" But Billy pretty much pretends not to know. Costello then implies that he is the dude who runs the neighborhood, the mob neighborhood. He gets like a drink from the bar. He takes a shot, and he tells Billy to come with him to the back room. And as they go back, Frank explains how the mafia keeps trying to hone in on his territory and how he's like pretty pissed off about it. He's kind of fed up with it. Then he explains that these two guys Billy beat up in the convenience store are mafia dudes, and they're going to come back to the neighborhood and kill him. Billy. They're going to kill Billy. Right. The only person who can stop that is Frank, and he kind of smooth talks him, so Frank asks Billy if he wants Frank to stop him. Where am I? Okay. Billy then asks if this is something he can handle personally, which pretty much just draws like a confused look to Frank and Mr. French. To us as the viewer, Billy is playing dumb, but Frank and French seem to think that he really doesn't really understand what's going on. How beating, two mafia guys might be a big deal. While Mr. French searches Billy, because Frank tells him to, he knows Billy's father. He says that the old man, fuck that. Okay. I wrote that wrong. Okay. At this point, Frank and Mr. French break the cast of Billy's arm, and then Costello starts wailing on his arm with Billy's boot while asking if he's still in the police force. Billy's like, "No, I'm not. I'm not a cop."
Are you a cop? Yeah. Good.
And then after, he believes him, he throws him a wad of cash and tells him to get his hand checked out again.
As mobsters do.
Oh, there's so much to talk about.
I mean, yeah, Tanner, by the way, we should go a little bit faster just because I want to jack up all night. We're only half an hour into the movie.
Then you know what?
We're already half an hour in.
Okay. From now on, just don't interrupt me. I can get through this in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, all right? I'm going to go really fast.
All right, let's go fast.
Frank and Mr. French go to discuss business back at Frank's place. Frank's asked Billy if he's reliable enough to bring into his operation. He finds it hard to trust the guy who acts like he's got nothing to do, which is exactly what Billy's been doing all along. Next thing we know, we see Colin investigating the murder of the two mafia guys from Providence. And guess what? You know what, Josh? They just so happen to be two guys Billy beat up in the corner store.
Hey-o.
So chances are that this is the work of, the mob with Frank. Okay. Colin then calls Madeline, jokingly tells her he'd like to have a meeting because they just saw two dead bodies. Okay. Then we see them changing the card on his phone before talking to Frank. All right. Then we cut. We notice that Billy is hanging out in Frank's place, which suggests that Frank's bringing him in on some business. All right. Frank directs Colin to investigate a certain guy for the hit on the two main mafia guys. We know that the dude is innocent, but it doesn't matter as long as Colin frames him because Frank sits Billy down and gives him a little speech. I don't forget what he talks about. When he pulls the ring from a severed hand, this is when he pulls a hand out of bag.
John, oh my God, what's his name? The president before Lincoln. Anyway,
President
John
before Lincoln?
John Lennon. They're talking about making nothing into something.
John
Wait,
Lennon's
hold
not
on, Josh.
whatever.
Did you
No,
just
no, no. They say
Lennon?
John Lennon, and then he says that he was the president before Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Okay, they
Anyway,
failed
yeah.
history. At this
Yes.
point, we notice that Captain, Queenan, and Sergeant Diggum are listening in, which means that Billy was wearing a wire, and Billy is terrified of this because they didn't search him, but they didn't search him, but he freaks out. After seeing the severed hand, Billy goes to the bathroom, ditches the wire immediately. For now on, he says he'll only communicate with Queenan by phone. He also wants to know that he's doing this all this for. Queenan lets them, in fact, that Costello's plans on selling it's whatever.
He's selling microprocessors to the Chinese. That's
Yes.
all he wants to know.
Okay. At the police station, Elder By asks Colin if he really thinks that the guy got charged with the murder of 2 Italian guys actually did it. Colin says he didn't care as long as they got somebody for it. Turns out the guy who was in charge ended up having a heart attack in jail and then got knifed to death at the hospital. So it
He had
looks
a rough
like
month.
it looks like he's not around to declare his innocence, not guiltiness. All right, Colin then becomes the leader of the special unit, and he handpicks his own team. And then we get cut back to Billy. Billy very slowly and awkwardly starts working for Frank, starting to shape up with him, although he's just pretending to be kind of dumb and clumsy. Back at the station, cut back. Colin says that he has created this new unit because he thinks that Frank has a rat in the state police. This is pretty clever because since Colin is the rat. Frank Costello gives Billy a cell phone and gives him instructions on how to use it.
Excuse me, no, you fucking idiot.
And he asked Billy if he's ever thought about going back to school. More dialogue. All right. Then we cut back to the restaurant. Before they leave the restaurant, Frank tells a couple of priests to stop messing with little boys.
No, little boy sucking on your
Yeah.
something.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
he says he fucked the nun.
Oh yeah, he did say that. I forgot about that part.
Me and Mary Teresa used to have a steamy relationship before she took her vows.
Back at the station, Colin sees that cops are interrogating one of Costello's top men. This guy has paged a lawyer, but the lawyer hasn't shown up yet. Colin decides to impersonate the guy and turns off the camera of the surveillance room and basically just gives him a phone, calls up, says, "I'm not going to be home for supper."
No, he's not Boston, he's Irish. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, just like that, Mr. French pulls his guys out of the drug house and brings the place to the ground. All right, back outside in the interrogation room, Colin makes it look as though he's just pulled some great info out of this guy, which is
Bullshit.
We see Billy accompany Mr. French. Again, we get a cut to another job they're doing. All right. This is when we get the cut to Madeline waking up in Colin's apartment, telling him he has nothing to be ashamed of.
He can't get it up.
Okay. For the first time we look at the cut, we see Billy sitting in Madeline's office, talking to her about his feelings. It looks as though his court-appointed he's basically her counselor. Then we flash to him.
Cool, by the way.
Then we flash to him pulling some more violent jobs and sitting alone at home looking at old photos. In Madden's office, Billy tries to explain how hard it is to work besides a mass murder all the day. His heart is racing, but his hands are steady. Back in his apartment, Billy takes a handful of Oxycontin pills, which means he's probably drugging himself because he needs to stay calm for the job.
Insane.
All right, it's been a year now since Billy went undercover, and he's had enough of it. Clearly burnt out. He wants to know why Queenan and Diggum haven't made a move. Okay. Queenan and Diggum say they're still building a case. That also means they think Costello has a spy inside the Special Investigation Unit, which only freaks Billy out even more. Back in the office, Madeline's office. Billy says he wants Madeline to give him Valium, another drug, to help him sleep because he's going nuts. Valium? I'm sorry. I'm not a...
The Liam. Dude, you need to do more drugs.
What?
You say that like you do drugs.
I'm a good Christian boy. I would never. That's why.
Exactly.
Tanner's a fucking
But you know Valium, don't you, Josh?
Anyway, Madeline denies him. After Billy storms out mad, Madeline just goes, okay, you know what? I'm just going to give him to him. Fuck it. He tells him that she's transferring him to another counselor. Things calm down between the two of them, and Billy takes her out for a cup of coffee. Just like that.
Cup of coffee.
What a great segue date. Next. Colin wakes up in the police safe house while a huge group of people are getting ready for a sting on Frank. Apparently, this is the night Costello is going to sell the microprocessors to the Chinese. Colin turns to his guys and asks if they know anything about the sting, but it looks like everyone was in the dark until the last second. Colin still makes time to call Frank and give him a heads up. So note that for sure now that there's a rat somewhere in Frank's operation. As the sting starts up, Colin learns that the FBI is monitoring all the cell phone calls. So he uses his texting pocketing skills to tell Frank to have his men turn their phones off. Inside the building,
he could do this.
inside the dock building, Frank and he gets his crew, and they're dealing with the microprocessors. Meanwhile, Billy texts a dollar symbol to Queenan to let him know that the money for the deal is on the site. All right. In a surprising move, Costello's crew and the Chinese gang leave the building on boats and head out to the harbor, which is located in the back. Turns out the guys don't have cameras in the back, and this is when Ellerby punches one of the camera guys in the face. Okay.
Oh, he got deserved, yeah. I mean, fucking shit out of your job, bro.
Okay. Man, I'm on scene 12.
Fuck. Okay, Josh. Okay.
We see Billy heading to catch a plane out of Boston while he's talking to Dignam on the phone now that he knows that Costello has somewhere he's high up in special investigations. Billy tells Dignam to send false report info through the department. Billy decides to stick around. The next time we see him, he's leaving. He's having coffee with Madeline. He asks her about her relationship and she tells him. Next time we see Madeline, she's moving some of her stuff into Colin's apartment. Frank calls. I'm really skipping past a lot of stuff. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Frank calls to ask why Colin let his phone die. He seems concerned that Colin concentrated. Okay, next.
Skip.
What?
Okay, no, go ahead.
So he's talking, bitching about him about his phone, how he was trained better for that. As he finishes the conversation with Colin, he runs into Captain Queenan and Dignam at a fair little thing. They exchange insults and before getting down to business. Okay.
Hi, Francis. My mother called me Francis.
Billy works a job to kill a guy who crossed Costello, but during the job, the guy lets slip that Costello is actually a protected FBI informant. The guy's high or something, right? Where he's on coke or something. I don't know.
He was on.
I don't know my drugs, Josh. I'm sorry.
Bro, do you know Demi Lovato?
Yeah. Billy meets Queenan at night.
Okay, sorry, we can't skip past this. That was a really cool reveal. Find out he's an FBI agent.
Yeah.
Well, he said that. No, he's not skipping over it.
I know, but I just want to say it's a really cool reveal. It's like, oh, that's wild. Anyway, yeah.
Oh yeah, and they're setting off fireworks in like a fucking school or something.
Or like in a building, I don't know, just so he could distract him so he could shoot the guy.
Yeah.
All right. Billy meets Captain Queenan at night at his house and tells that Costello is a protected FBI informant. Billy walks into a warehouse one day and finds Mr. French waiting for him. French wants him to write down every scrap of personal information about himself. He puts it into an envelope. The guy's writing citizen, but he doesn't know how to spell, and he helps him out.
This become a big plot point.
Yep. Next time we see Billy, he shows up at Madeline's apartment. She lets him in after some chit-chat about Billy's vulnerability, whatever.
Then they fuck.
See Captain Eller.
Wait, sorry. Fuck Billy, dude. He doesn't like cats.
We see Captain Ellerby at the driving range talking to Colin about how Colin will have to investigate everyone in his department to find out who Costello's rat is. Elderby then asks Colin how the plans for his wedding are going. Colin says it's all good, we don't care. All right. Costello meets Colin in a porno theater. He gives him the envelope. At the back of the theater, Billy watches the conversation, but he can't see Colin's face because he's wearing a baseball hat. When Colin leaves the theater, Billy chases him, and this is when Frank gives the envelope that says "Citizens" to Colin. So when Colin leaves the theater, Billy chases him to get a better look at his face. Just when Billy's about to get to him, though, his phone goes off and Colin ducks behind a truck. He's onto him.
These are cool chasing. I love it.
Colin's suspicious. He hears footsteps. He as a shadow or figure shows up, he ends up stabbing some dude in Chinatown.
Anyway,
he's walking away. What?
Sorry, Tanner. I hate interrupting, but it's just really, really, really well done chasing. Go ahead.
Josh, well, this is a movie review. Would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Nah, yeah, that's what I said. It's just like one of the coolest chase scenes in like indie movies.
I was trying to get this done so we can have like the review.
Yeah. That's better. You're probably right.
He walks back to an intersection. He sees a camera, like a restaurant fixture, and he goes back to his FBI or his office, and he looks at the security footage. Okay. We cut to Frank. He calls Billy to sit down with them in a restaurant and accuses him of outright being a rat in his operation. With some clever maneuvering, Billy's able to put him off the scent. He takes a huge gamble by threatening to blow Frank's head off if he ever threatens him again. Frank pulls out a gun, cocks it, and points it at Billy.
Yeah, not real smart play by Billy.
Yeah, it wasn't very. That was not a good idea at all.
What the fuck?
Colin shows up at the special investigation unit and he has another conversation with Dignam. For a while, they're going in, talking with Queenan. Queenan tells Colin to look at everybody in his department. He goes back to his desk. Colin starts searching through the information on all of Costello's men. Outside, we cut back to a restaurant. Costello's men, and I don't know. What's the guy's name? Oh, Fitzy, and the other guy joke about how anyone who doesn't pay attention to them is a cop. They're outside and they're like, "See that lady? She's not paying attention to us. She's a cop."
Hot women.
Inside the bar, Frank shows up covered in blood. He tells Billy he won't be working the job that day because Frank is going to use all new guys for it. Billy calls Queenan to tell him what's up, but he wants Queenan not to tell anyone at the station because he thinks Costello's trying to flush him out by saying he hears a rat that's in the station. Queenan keeps the information for himself, and when Colin doesn't hear anything. Frank, never mind. Billy walks outside, calls him a cop because he's not paying attention to him. Billy doesn't realize at first that they're joking, but they laugh anyway, and he heads home. Back at the office, Colin decides to find Costello's rat. He's putting all of the surveillance on Captain Queenan and waiting for Queenan to lead him to the rat. So he kind of is using tactics to find the rat. He's the rat trying to find the rat. Queenan eventually takes the people to the subway. Where Billy calls him and asks him to meet if there's someone tailing him. Queenan assures him that there isn't. So Billy leads him to an address. The guy tailing Queenan reports back to Colin that Queenan is meeting the rat. So Colin goes ahead and calls Costello to tell him the address where the rat is meeting. Back on the rooftop of the building, Queenan tells Billy that he's going to start the process of pulling him out of the undercover job. When meeting Queenan, Billy gets a call from Delahunt saying that the gang is about to go and kill the rat, who is apparently meeting with Queenan on Washington Street, which is where he's at. Billy hangs up, tells Queenan that he was followed, and that they need to exit the building immediately. But it's too late. Costello's guys are already there. Queenan stays to create a diversion while Billy takes the fire escape. Billy tries to walk away from the building, but Queenan, he falls and he dies right in front of him. Meanwhile, the cops following Queenan want to know what the heck just happened. Colin tells the cop not to engage Costello's men. The cops disobey and they get into a shootout. They escape. Cut back to the police station. Sergeant Dignam and Captain Ellerby question Colin about why he had Queenan followed, but Colin avoids the question by saying he was acting on secret info. What the fuck just happened? Oh my god. Right. Hang on. Where am I?
Well, you forgot to say when they get in the van and stuff, one of the guy, I don't remember which guy, asks or talks to Leonardo DiCaprio's character. I
Mm.
don't remember his name.
Billy.
He's saying to him, he's like, "Yeah, I called you, but I gave you the wrong address."
No, that's when he was dying on the couch when they got back.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
At the police station, Sergeant Dinham, so he's questioning questions Collins about why he had Queenan followed. Captain Alibi tells Dignam to take a leave of absence, but Dignam quits his job instead. Colin wants access to Queenan's files, but the only guy who can get them is Dignam, and he's gone. Back at Costello's safe house, Fitzy questions Billy on where he was when the gang was trying to reach him. Billy makes up a story about he was being at the grocery store, but he gets called over to a dying Delahunt who got shot during the police shootout, and Delahunt tells Billy that he knows he's the rat because he gave him the ad, and Billy gets the gun out ready to kill him, but he dies.
And he starts going like, "Why didn't I say anything?"
Mhm.
Stuff like that. They're like, that's what I'm trying to say.
Colin goes off on Costello about killing Queenan because Colin has no way of getting access to the info on Queenan's guys. Meanwhile, Billy waits outside Madeline's office until she comes out. She tells him that she can't be a friend to him because she's marrying another guy. Another bullshit scene. Okay. Back at the station, Colin picks up Queenan's phone and calls the last number Queenan called. Billy picks up. They don't say a word to each other, and neither does Colin. Yeah, they didn't say anything.
Very tense.
They just listen to each other, and they hang up. A minute later, Billy calls Colin back. Colin explains that he's Sergeant Sullivan and that he's taken over Queenan's unit. Colin wants to meet with Billy, but as you might expect, Billy doesn't trust anyone. He demands to speak to Dignam, but Colin tells him that Dignam is of absence. As he goes through Queenan's things, Colin realizes that Costello is an FBI informant. Costello's gang sits around TV while the news tells a story about Delahunt's body was found. Fitzy says he can't believe it because they just spent all night hiding the body. But Costello just flips out on him for letting the cops find the body so quick. Some cool dialogue. Insults are thrown. Turns out that the cops are trying to spin the dead Delahunt as a cop to throw Costello off the scent. Next thing we know, Costello and his boys are on their way to a major deal. Colin calls him up to tell him that he's got a tail. This is at night. Costello tells Colin to get rid of the tail, which Colin says he'll do, but the thing is, he doesn't. Turns out Colin's pretty mad about Costello being an FBI informant without telling him.
Rat.
A rat.
Dirty rat.
Colin heads into the surveillance room and tells Captain Alibi to take the tail off Costello, but he also says that they're going to arrest Costello tonight, which is going to come as a surprise news to Costello himself.
Yeah, I don't think he was really expecting.
Billy keeps texting info to Colin, who directs the police to the drug deal that Costello was doing. The cops creep in on site. As the drug deal goes on, Costello, they open fire. A huge firefight begins. Costello and Fry try to drive away, but they're surrounded. French gets shot, and he drives away. And Costello gets out of the car and makes a break for it, and French commits suicide.
Fuck it.
Fuck it, dude.
In some part of the warehouse, Costello runs to Colin, asking him what happened. Colin tells Frank he sold him out because he was an FBI informant. But Costello tells Colin that he never gave up anyone who wasn't already going down. He's been playing the FBI for fools, and he's sure that he knows. Frank says Colin, he always liked him as a son to him, but Colin accuses him of wanting a son because he is unable to have kids himself. And this is when Colin is quick draw. He uses his quick draw abilities, and he quickly kills Costello.
Use the quick draw perk.
Yeah, Black Ops 2.
Goddamn, you fucking nerds.
Frank's. Who has more gamer score?
I don't
Shut
know.
up. Keep going.
Frank's phone rings, and Colin picks it up to tell Frank's girlfriend Gwen that Frank is dead. Okay.
Very unnecessary scene too.
Back at the police station, Colin returns to a hero's welcome. He heads straight into his office to sit down with Billy and gives him his life back. Billy also wants to know what Colin is doing about Costello's rat. Colin swears he'll arrest the guy. Billy says he wants his money and wants to go home. He gives Colin the password to his file, which is his own name, and Colin heads out to access it. Once Colin's gone, Billy kind of goes and snoozing around the office, and he sees the envelope that says "Citizens" on it. Keep in mind, this is the same envelope that, you guys know. So he knows Colin's the rat. He takes off without a trace. He just leaves. Once Colin gets back to his office, he realizes what Billy saw and heads off to erase his police file. Now it doesn't matter what Billy knows about him because there are no records of Billy in the police database. Billy tracks down Madeline and hands her an envelope. He tells her not to open it if anything ever happens to him because he doesn't know who else to give it to because he trusts her. Back at the apartment, Madeline hands Colin a ultrasound picture saying they're going to have a baby boy. Who gives a shit? All right. That little stick thing, that's a penis. Okay. That's something I remember from that scene.
Oh
Dude,
my
all you do is
god.
interrupt to talk about penises.
Well, I didn't
Oh
interrupt
my
you. That's the
God.
difference.
Tanner, all you do is talk about cocks.
Okay. When she heads back into the kitchen, Madeline goes through the mail and sees an envelope for Colin with the return address of W.W. Costigan. She gets suspicious and opens it to find a CD. She plays the CD with headphones on while he's in the bathroom taking a shower, listens to the conversations between Frank and she knows. Turns out Frank was so paranoid that he taped all of his conversations with people, so Madeline hears everything about Colin's world of lies. Colin calls up Billy, who tells him that Costello's lawyer came to him without anything. It turns out, in the end, Costello's trusted Billy more than anyone. Billy sets up a meeting with Colin at the building where Queen died. Where Colin arrives, Billy pulls a gun on him and tells him he's taking him back to the police station to arrest him. Colin tells him that he can't do that because his file is gone, and none of the world except Dignam knows he's a cop anymore.
Yeah, Dignam.
Billy says he doesn't care if the charges don't stick because he's arresting Colin. At this point, another police officer arrives, another guy that they kind of went to school with, police officer training with.
Right.
He's in Transformers.
Officer Brown. It's actually
Officer Brown.
Nice
That's
job.
no, that's his name.
I know.
He pulls his gun, ordering Billy to step away from Colin. Billy tries to explain to Mr. Brown that Colin is Costello's rat.
Officer Brown.
He and the other cop recognize each other from the police academy, but the other cop still can't allow Billy to leave Colin. Billy slowly backs away until he and Colin are in an elevator heading to the first floor, while the other cop takes the stairs. In the elevator, Colin finally breaks and tells Billy to kill him. But Billy thinks that arresting Colin is way worse than killing him in a better and more symbolic way. Now here's the part where everyone gets freaked out, right? The elevator door opens, and Billy just gets shot in the head and dies.
Oh, dude.
By another
what
cop.
no. Oh my god.
What was your guys' reaction? Like Jack and Tanner.
Okay. Jack, you can go first.
I thought this was so dumb. I don't really understand like the whole like he instantly just like why didn't he just shoot him before? Why did he wait till the elevator got down? Oh, never mind. I'm thinking of the wrong people. Never mind.
Yeah, wait,
I'm
what?
sorry?
How
Yeah.
is that dumb?
No, because
Brown didn't shoot him.
no, I know. I realize that now. Yeah.
All right. I
whole
saw
scene
this
is
death
messed up.
scene in a Watch Mojo video.
I've
Like
seen it in the
most-
Watch Mojo too.
And I was like, oh, that was an unexpected. It was like top 10 most unexpected deaths, whatever. And when it happened, I'm like, oh my god, that's the video I saw. That's the first thing I thought when I saw it.
There.
Right.
It's,
Jack just thought it was stupid.
Oh no,
This
no.
whole
Billy get-
scene is
I'm tired. I
so-
didn't
'cause-
think.
okay, so
I was
like you go through, Billy gets shot, and then or
Brown
we
gets
can
shot.
keep going. We can keep going. But this whole scene is so fucking whack.
Billy gets shot through the head and killed by another cop from Colin's squad. Then the other cop from the roof comes out of the elevator, the adjacent elevator, and this new guy gets killed by the guy who killed Billy.
Right.
He tells Colin that Costello had 2 different cops working in the police force all along.
Yes, he did.
As soon as Colin gets his hands on a gun, he shoots the new guy in the head, just like that.
People just fucking die in this scene. Like that's so
Now there are
funny.
3 dead bodies, and Colin is the only one left standing.
Goddamn Colin, bro.
All right. As
But you know
police-
who wins in the end? We'll get there. We'll get there.
A police cleanup crew arrives, and Colin gives his account on how Billy, Costigan, and the other officers all died. He mentions that Billy was an undercover cop, so Billy ends up getting a state funeral. Madeline goes to the funeral and cries for Billy. Then she stares at Colin, who, with fuck you eyes, walks past him without a word. So she's just gonna have the kid.
No,
I
fuck
guess.
you eyes are different. That's just like you're an asshole eyes. Fuck you eyes means I want to have sex with you.
You should go to the
Con-
total fuck me eyes.
Colin heads
Fuck
back
me
to his
eyes.
apartment alone. He pets a dog. Dignam.
She pulls the dog away.
He opens the door. He sees Dignam inside wearing plastic on all over his body. Dignam shoots Colin through the head and walks away without a trace. In the final shot of the movie, we get a look at the balcony railing outside Colin's apartment. And what do we see?
There's
a rat.
Rat.
And we cut the credits. All right, I'm
Great
done.
symbolism.
You guys take it away.
Dude,
Dingham won in the end.
Dignam fucking won.
Wait, so I was confused. Like, why did Dingham kill him?
Because Dignam knew he was a rat.
Oh,
I bet you.
But he was a cop. He should have arrested him, right?
Well, okay. Well, Matt Damon literally. Oh, sorry. Colin literally got like Queendom killed, and he's just been a rat this whole entire time. I would just
Okay,
kill him.
I mean, I know that,
It's
but
Dignam,
like,
bro. Dignam's not a cop anymore. He quit. Remember?
oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Okay,
So he
okay.
just
Okay,
fucking
okay.
popped him, dude.
popped his shit.
Popped that motherfucker. Anyway.
I've never
I
talked
mean,
so much in my entire life.
Dude, so we give a. I don't know, man. I think. Do you want us to give final reviews now, or we want to discuss anything? Like
You guys can go.
Final reviews.
I'm sorry, I probably missed a lot of stuff. Anything like that stood out to you in the movie?
No, just
Anything
just
that
a lot of funny parts that happened. The fucking Frank whipping out a fake cock in the middle of the porn theater.
Oh my god.
In front of
That
his
was
face.
great.
It's like,
He makes he's like, he's making all the like groans and stuff, and then he just whips it out.
Do you think that might be a nod to Boogie Nights with Mark Wahlberg? That would be funny if it is.
No, it's more like a off.
Well, it would be. It's nice to think about, Josh. Thank you and good night.
Not really any more scenes. Kind of. I mean, the whole entire
It's-
the last scene with Frank is awesome. How that's all shot, and just it's kind of surprising because you're like, okay, why is he now turning on Frank? And then, like, because he's a FBI guy. You didn't really miss much, though.
Okay.
You didn't miss him knocking the guy's teeth out. Billy. When they're like interrogating the guy and reach for his cigarettes, so fucking Billy just knocks him,
Oh yeah.
knocks him in the face, and he's like, "Why'd you do that?"
That was just me being lazy.
No, that's fine. It's not a very important scene. It was just funny. Yeah, dude. I think we can give some final reviews.
Hell yeah.
I'll go first. I have gone first. Ever.
Go ahead.
Well, as someone who was analyzing it, I definitely had to pause a lot. So I didn't get to see the movie throughout. I did pause. So I guess I'm more on a more different scale. But I liked it. It was definitely hard to understand the first time.
That's fine. Yeah.
It moved so quick. I couldn't tell if like scenes were taking place at the same time, if the scenes were in the past. If it definitely is a hard movie to grasp timing wise. All the characters and the dialogue, they're great. Is the love interest important in my opinion? Not really. I don't care.
It's just a triangle though.
Yeah, triangle, but I didn't feel it. I was like, okay, this is unnecessary. She's a psychiatrist for cops, and like, how's she related? Okay, whatever.
No, she's a psychiatrist for not just for cops. Just for,
I thought it
like,
is for cops.
No, she's a probation psychiatrist too. What she said, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to admit. It's hard to admit. No, it's hard.
Yep.
It's not hard to admit. Wait.
I think the movie, in lengthwise, here's the thing. It's long. What is it? 2.5 hours, and there's a lot of information. Maybe if they could have done 3 hours, it would have been better. I don't know. I don't know if I want
3.
I think 3 hours might have made
Dude, when we
comfortable.
watch Goodfellas, that's like almost 3 hours. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Dude, when we watch The Rise of Skywalker, it's only 2.5 hours, but it feels like 5 movies.
My final rating, I'll give it an 8.9.
Mm.
God damn.
That's good.
Just because I would give it an A. I'm gonna give it a really high B plus, just because it was so hard to follow for a first time viewer.
That's fair.
8.9
But
for me.
I hit hard. Anyway, Jack, you wanna go?
Yeah, I'll go. I enjoyed this movie. As Tanner said, it's a long movie, but I feel like it did need to be longer. I would have preferred it to be that extra, maybe not 30 minutes, but extra 15, 20 minutes. They could have stretched out some of the parts that went a little too quickly. And there was a lot of jokes and good time jokes. It wasn't just like parts that are in there that are like Halloween, where there's just random things that happen that you like giggle, but you're like, why? It was funny, but like it has no point. Like in this movie, it has like the cranberry scene, the porn movie scene with with Frank, and there's just a lot of all the good actors. There's a lot of good actors in this movie, which makes it overall a good movie. It has good writing. It's a very high end movie with, I guess everything incorporated with it is high end. But yeah, as Tanner was saying, like the pacing was a little bit weird, kind of. But yeah, I think there were some cool scenes, like the microchip transfer, and like how you could see both rats like manipulating the whole scenario. Yeah, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Like when I first saw it, I was like, I'll be honest, I was like 2.5 hours. I really just don't want to sit through this. And then like I was like an hour and a half in, and it felt like it was like 25, 30 minutes. But yeah, it was a fun movie to watch. I think my final score is going to be an 8.8. Just because this movie was I think it was very good. I think it was one of the best movies we've seen so far.
The best.
Yeah.
Josh, did you get my snap while I was watching this movie?
Yeah, he's in the pacing. I didn't think you liked it then. When you sent me that, I'm like, oh no, please. Yeah, I got your snap. Ryan, do you want to go or you want me?
I can go.
Okay.
All right. So this movie is one of the most perfectly made movies I have ever watched in my life. Now, I know the pacing is weird, but the shots are so good. The acting is so good. The dialogue, the script is so good. It is definitely in my top 5. Like, this movie is really, really good. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Damn.
Yeah.
This is going to take first place, 100%.
I fucking love this movie. I will never get bored watching this movie.
Alright, you good, Ryan?
I'm good. That's it. I mean, I'm not going to go into details.
What's stopping it from being a 10, Ryan?
It's not the most perfect. Like you said, I will give it, the pacing is weird for a first-time viewer, blah, blah, blah. But it's not the most perfect. But
Okay.
it's damn near.
So, again, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Easy. I love this movie with a passion. I just think it's like that throughout. It's just so cool seeing the contrast between the good guy, Billy, the good guy, who's mainly the protagonist of the movie, but he's doing bad things. And then you have the antagonist, who's Colin, who's actually doing good things, being a cop, but he's also doing like the worst things, being he's a rat in the police. But then you have an undercover cop who's going and committing all these different crimes with the gang members, but he's actually the protagonist, and how the real bad guy, Colin's living this perfect life. He has a wife, he got an apartment, he's having a kid, he's doing all this different stuff, and then they would like show him on a date, and then they cut back to Billy, who's having his like arm wrapped up, and he's just looking at the nurse, but he doesn't do anything. But he's just like thinking about it. It's just showing how like, Billy's kind of getting the fucking short end of the stick to do like, but he's the protagonist, which is really, it's just a cool contrast how they gave the protagonist the worst life, and they gave the bad guy, or the bad guy. I don't know what to call Colin. He's definitely a dick. But they gave him more of the best life throughout the movie, and I just love how Scorsese shot that. All the acting throughout the movie is fucking incredible. Leonardo DiCaprio is probably the greatest actor ever. Jack Nicholson, who's just had his facial expressions, his body language throughout the movie, his chemistry with everyone's so good. Matt Damon really, he plays his role really well as a rat in the police department. You can tell he's corrupt, but you can tell like, I don't know, everyone's so convincing. They do such a great job. The comedy hit. I think all the comedy hit, just because Boston accents makes everything funnier. Especially Marky Mark, Alec Baldwin, Martin. Also, Martin Sheen did an amazing job in this movie as Queenum. Yeah, this movie like throughout is just awesome. The reveals, the twists. I think this is This is definitely one of my top 5 movies ever, by one of my top 3 directors ever. And I'm gonna give it a 9. I was gonna give it a 9.4 out of 10.
Come on, Josh.
I'm not giving it a 10 because definitely some of the pacing is weird. Like it definitely, they could slow down a bit. I agree, and that's why it's not perfect. But I think this is an almost perfect movie with a pretty much perfect ending. Right?
And
Everyone
a perfect cast.
Yeah, I was just
And
about to
perfect
say that,
cast,
Jack.
dude.
Perfect.
Yeah, everyone was casted perfect, and I thought the love triangle was fine. Again, it was one of those things that definitely didn't need to be there. Where you didn't need that connection, and it didn't really pay out at the end. The only thing it paid out was having her at the funeral for Billy. It was only pay out with that love triangle. But it's just like, was that really worth all that? Who knows? But yeah, I think it was an almost perfect movie. And this is probably I gotta say, this is my favorite Scorsese film. If not, it's Wolf of Wall Street, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
9.1, Josh.
It's only a 9.1? I'm gonna give it a 9.8.
You know what's weird is I just looked up, since it's 9.1, Rotten Tomatoes is a 91%.
God damn.
That's pretty cool.
We
God,
are
thanks.
Rotten Tomatoes.
Guess we're pros.
Hey, what's Halloween's Rotten Tomato score?
I don't know.
Google it.
Googling it.
I'm looking.
Oh wait, it made me look up the holiday Halloween. 96. Oh my god.
What? Wow.
I'm sorry. Let's not talk about Halloween.
I'm fucking pissed, dude. The movie's not that good. Alright, anyway. The Departed. 9.1. Damn straight.
That beats Blow by like 0.7, right?
Yeah, by 0.7. So,
Damn.
Our new rankings for the movies we have reviewed so far. By the way, we're gonna do like seasons because I kind of want to reset these charts.
Well, it's just you can, when we get to where there's more, you can just do top 10.
Oh, how about we just like reset them every time we give new movies?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. But when there's a whole bunch of them, you do like top 10. Like when we get towards the end of a season, top 10.
Yeah.
And then if like the movie comes below the top 10, you say what number it came.
But you should definitely keep record of the best rated movie and the lowest rated movie.
Yeah.
So Blow's gonna be there forever.
Blow? You mean The Room?
Oh, I'm sorry, The Room. Yeah, god damn.
I don't know. I'm telling you, bro. Last Airbender's coming.
Oh my god.
All right.
I don't want to watch that.
I'll find a movie worse
All right,
than The Room. Trust me.
Pick another one. How many movies you got left?
No, wait, I gotta tell you the ratings. All right, boys, and coming out the new number 1 spot, we got The Departed at 9.1. Number 2, Blow. I won't say the rating. Number 2, Blow. Number 3, Reservoir Dogs. Number 4, It Man. Number 5, The Conjuring, tied with It Man.
So it's 4.
Both 4. I would say, okay, fuck it. Both 4. Number 5, Batman Begins. Number 6, The Halloween. Number 7, Twister. And coming in at last, as always, The Room. Yeah, boys, that's the ratings right now. Let me quickly save this. 9.1. I knew that would really be the best movie. I love that movie. It's such a fucking masterpiece. All right. And with that, I think I'm out of movies.
Huh?
Yeah, Josh has used all 3.
Yeah, because it
all
was
mine.
Reservoir Dogs,
The Departed.
Departed.
And The Room.
The Room. Yeah. All my.
Well,
Oh, I still have one. I still have Iron Man.
Yeah, Iron Man.
I still have Goodfellas and
Matrix.
Matrix.
Wait, we have 6 up right now.
Yeah, I think because
The Matrix.
we added a few before
Yeah, we kinda
we
added a
said
few
before we said we're
Yeah,
just gonna change it.
Because we added Apocalypto. That's the only one. Then we had 5. So we have 6 left. It's fine. So boys, we got The Matrix, Goodfellas, La Bamba, Midsommar, Iron Man,
La
and
Bamba.
The Hawk of the. Guess I have to share my screen, boys.
No, Josh, we trust you.
No, it's funny to see it.
I like to see
It was Halloween was so funny,
It
and
was.
Conjuring.
Alright, boys. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Goodfellas.
Ooh! I've never seen
Oh,
this.
okay. Excited for
Neither have
So we should. So Jack, what's your schedule? Because I want to it's a long movie. I want to take, time with it.
Well,
so
we could do
so
Friday.
you're not pressed for time to
Nah,
go to bed and
Friday's-
stuff like that.
Which is our regular Friday.
Friday or Saturday.
Friday, okay.
Saturday worked for you too, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, this is also a Scorsese flick. Forgot about that. Damn, we're doing 2 Scorsese movies, boys, in a row.
I'm about it.
I've never seen this, so I'm kind of excited. I've always wanted to see it.
You've never seen this, Josh?
I've
Never
never
seen
seen
it.
it either.
Neither have I. You're the only one, Ron, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh.
so this should be good. I know who's in it. Like Pesci, De Niro. I know who's in it because this is what they're mostly known for.
You sure?
A lot of people. Yeah, boys. Everyone. So, thank you everyone for listening. So join us on Monday as we review Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese. Again, I want to thank you all from all of us at Movie Mates Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day. Peace.
See you.